So today we're going to talk about something that we talked at the end of the last lecture, but will be very important for whatever you need to do in Matlab. Now, we'll talk first about Boolean variables, then about Boolean operators and loops, and at the end we'll do a game which is called Monty. I don't know how many of you know it. It's a very nice game. It's pretty nice, so we'll get to it at the end. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is, as I said, Boolean variables. Now, Boolean variables are, we call it logic variables, logical, and they contain a statement, true or false. And we get it as answer for questions. For example, I can ask Matlab whether 5 equals 4. When I press enter, I get the answer, which is 0. 0 means false, which is not true, and 1 means true. For example, whether 5 equals 5. Of course, it's true, and the answer for that is 1. Those are Boolean variables. Now, the kind of questions we can ask is, as you can see here. Okay, you have it all here. For example, this sign, this symbol, 2 times equal, it asks Matlab whether it equals, whether the left side equals to the right side. Okay, for example, as we saw here, 5 equals 4. Then I get the answer 0. I can also store it in a variable, for example, x equals 5, 2 times equal 4. Now it calculates here, it asks whether 5 equals 4, and then the 0, it stores it in x. So when I press enter, I get that x equals 0. Okay? For example, this sign, as you see here, is not equal to. Okay? So if I try to do it, whether 5 not equal to 4, I will get 1, because 5 not equal to 4. Okay, we have also greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. Okay, it's pretty logical. I mean, it makes sense, right? Now, we're going to talk now about if statements. So I'm going to open a new script for that. Okay, and I want to talk about that. Now,
can I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
Could you go back?
Yes.
To that and go up a little?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I saw that you wrote x equals 5, so you don't need brackets here?
No, I don't need brackets because it's not an array, okay? I ask Matlab whether 5 equals 4. That's what I do here.
But how does Matlab know that x equals this thing and not just x equals 5? And
because I wrote 2 times equals. 2 times
okay.
It's equal sign. It's like you can also put it in bracket. It doesn't make a big difference. If it's easier for you to see it like that, then it's also fine. I mean, it doesn't make any difference. But it knows to ask whether 5 equals 2, and then it stores the answer in x.
What's the sign again that you wrote next to the 5? Before
Here?
the, yeah.
This sign means not equal.
Oh.
Okay, this sign in Matlab means not. When we'll have 1 and I will write this not, it will give me 0. It will do the opposite.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. This sign is not, and you can see here all the statements. You see it here, okay? Those are all the statements that we can do. This one is equal, not equal, greater than, less than, and we'll work with it during the lecture a lot, okay? We'll see it a lot. So you can copy it for yourself for a second if you want, or you'll just see it on the screen. But it makes sense, except for those 2 first ones. All the rest you can guess yourself. It's like in math, but these ones are different, the first 2. Okay. Now we're going to talk about if statement. Now, if statement is very important in MATLAB because sometimes we want to run part of the code if something is true, and we don't want to run it if it's not true. So you can see the diagram here. I run my code, I go through here. You can see my cursor, right? You can see it on the screen. If I go from here up, and then I ask, is the condition true? If it's true, I want to run something. If not, I want to jump above it and keep the code running. Now we'll see a simple example for that. For example, okay, wait a second. Okay, so let's add something. Before that, I'll show you just a clear, second. Yeah, before that, I'm going to show you a new command. We have in MATLAB the input command. I can write x input, and then everything I write inside will be a comment. For example, please enter a number from 1 to 10. When I run it, I need to save it first, probably. Okay. Now, when I run it, you can see in the command window that I have this comment that I wrote. Please enter a number from 1 to 10. I press, for example, 5. And when I press enter, I have inside X, I have the 5 that I wrote here. Okay, everything I write here inside will be the comment or will be the question, let's say, for the input. Now, it's very important to put attention for the space here, because if I won't write it and I run it, you see, it will be very close to this 10, and we don't want that. So we always put a space here. Okay, that's the input. Now, for example, I want to make a software which asks the students whether they watch all Game of Thrones episodes. And if they did, they can go to do their homework. But if not, they didn't watch everything, they need to keep watching. And that's what I want to do. I want to do a program that will tell them what to do. So let's do it. We'll have a new variable. I'll call it watched all. And then the input will be, have you watched all Game of Thrones episode? Okay. Now, yes will be equal to 1, and no will be equal to 0. Okay, that's what I told them to put in. Okay, now I want to use an if statement. If they watch everything, I want them to go to write their homework. So, if, that's how I write it, watched all, sorry, equals 1. If they watched all, I want to write a comment. Now I use a comment for that. It's called this. This will just display something in a command window. So this good boy or girl. Now you can go to do your homework. Okay. At the end, I need to write and. Now that's the syntax for the if statement. If this one is true, if I get that this one is true, it will get into this. If not, it will just jump above it. Let's see what happens. If I write, I watch everything, so I write 1. Then I get, good boy, now you can go to do your homework. If I'll press it again, and I'll enter 0, I won't get any command. Now, I want to get a comment of, let's say, so stop everything and go to do it now. So I write else. If this one is not true, it will jump to else. And I go to this. Go now to watch it all. And then I press end. Now, you can see that this syntax is not very complicated. If something is true, it goes here. But if it's not, it goes to else, and it will display this command, okay? So let's see what happens. I click on run. So I watched everything, I get this command. If I press 0, I get the other one, okay? It's pretty simple, and it makes sense, right? Did you understand it? Or was it a bit too fast?
When I type in the command window, it gets in purple as well, and they write unrecognized function.
Again, I didn't understand.
Like in the command window, when I write there, then it's written in purple, and it's written that the function is unrecognized.
The input? Maybe I need to see it, so maybe we'll see it later, okay? I'll see it later. If you wrote it like input here, so it's supposed to work, okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
Why do you need to put it inside a variable? Have you watched all your? Have you watched all this? Yes.
Because I want to store it somewhere. I want to store the answer somewhere. Then I can ask if it's true, then it equals 1. I could also copy all that. No, I don't know actually. Maybe I could copy all of that into the if statement, but then it doesn't make any sense. It's not comfortable. It's not how you use the code in a very easy way. I store it into a variable because it's more easy to control the code like that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
May I have another question, a little one?
Yes.
How can we do in the input a downline? Like when a downline, like when you write your answer, it will be the line beneath the one that.
Oh, actually, I don't know. We can check it later. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. That's about the if statement. Now, let's do another exercise with the if statement. Let's say I want to get an input. Now you try it on your computer, okay? Take 5 minutes to do it, and then we'll see the answer. I want to write a program which gets as an input the temperature, and for the output it says whether it's warm or cold. And I mean, I'll show you my screen here. Okay, let's go to here. Wait, I need my pen. So it gets into the input, the variable t is the temperature, okay? Now, if it's greater than 30, write, for example, it's hot. If it's less than 30, write it's cold. Okay, try to do it for a second. Of course, you can choose like whether you want 30 here or on the other side.
Can you just explain again how you made the first if work?
Here?
Like when you press and run, I get the first, like the input, but then how do you get the first, like?
Now it runs automatically after you press enter. You can also click here. You see next to the 1, I have this line. I can click on that, and I get this red dot. Now, this red dot means that when I get to this line, my program will stop, okay? So when I press run, the program stops on the first line, and now you can see everything that happens. In this editor tab, I have, you see this button which is called step? Every time I press on the step, it will jump to the next row. So I press on step, you see? It activated this row. So it clears everything, clear the command window, and close everything that I had open. Now I press on step. So I get this input line. And for example, I input 1, and it goes to the if statement. Now, again, the if statement asks whether watched all, which is 1, that's what I put inside, equals 1. It is equal 1. So it gets into disk, okay? After it print it, it goes to end. It jumps over this else. And when I press on another step, it goes outside. You see? It closed the script, for example.
It's weird because in my workspace, I don't see the watched all.
You're supposed to see it on the right side, in the workspace.
Yeah.
You don't see it? Maybe is your workspace on? Like, can you see it?
Like I see the ends and the X of the previous exercise.
No, you need to write clear all, CLC, and close all.
I did that.
Okay, so leave it, watch it now, and then later, after the class, we'll sit and we'll go through it, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so how do we do what I just said with the temperature? So I get as input, let's close it. I get as an input. What is the temperature today? Okay, so what is the temperature today? Then I ask, if T is greater than 30, I want to display it's hot. I need to do it in quotation mark. I need to do it in quotation mark because I want to write this, I forgot how you call it, but this thing here, okay? If I put in both sides, how do you call it? Can someone tell me? I don't remember. Let's say 1 quotation mark. If I put it like that, you see that just the it becomes purple, okay? And we don't want it. So I put it in full quotation mark. Most of the time I use it. It's more comfortable. So if T is greater than 30, it will display it's hot. Otherwise, it will display it's cold. Now, and then we need to write end at the end. Now, sometimes we don't want just to divide it by 2. We want to ask if, and then we want to ask whether another statement happens. For that, we have else if. And now here we can put another statement. For example, whether T is less than 19. Then I want to say that it's cold. If not, if it's not less than 19 and not greater than 30, I want to display it's comfortable. Okay? So let's see. What is the temperature today? Let's say it's 25. Then I get the answer, it's comfortable. Okay? Is it clear what happens here and why it works like that? Did someone, let's say even if you had some bugs in your program, and we'll solve it later, did you understand the sense of what I wrote here?
Yes.
Okay.
I understood what you did, but there is a problem that if you write 30, it says it's comfortable.
Right, because, okay, so I can either change it to equals and then greater than 30, right? And then it will say that it's warm. If it's just greater than 30, also 30 comes false. Why? Because 30 is not greater than 30, right?
Yeah.
So it brings me to else, and then it says it's comfortable, okay? So you can write equals or greater than 30 to do it the other way around, okay? Now if I run it with 30, it says it's hot. Okay, that was about the if statement. Now we're going to talk about while loops. Now, while loops are very important because you can see it here. You can see the diagram. I run my program and then I get to a while loop and it asks whether the condition is true. If it's true, it runs something, okay? It does something, and then it goes back up to the condition and it asks whether it's true. If it's still true, it goes back and do something else, the same statement. It runs the same code again. And then it goes back out, and so on. Once it's not true, it goes above it, it jumps over the statement, and keeps going. So let's see when it's useful. Now you're Bart. You all know Bart, right? This little guy. And he has to write 100 times on the board, I won't use graphs in Excel anymore. And that's what he wants to do now in Matlab. So let's see how he does it. Okay. So the while syntax is very easy. Okay. I write while, and then here I put a statement. For example, n equals 100 or greater than, doesn't matter. Now, n will be the number of times that Bart wrote, I won't use Matlab. I won't use, sorry, Excel for graphs anymore. So the initial condition, that's what we do when we have the while loop. We always have an initial condition, and this will be equal 0. Now, while n is less than 100, I want to display I won't use Excel for graphs anymore. Sorry. Yeah, looks like that. Okay. So as long as n is less than 100, I want to display I won't use Excel for graphs anymore. And then I need to add to n plus 1. Why? Because if I won't do it, n will stay 0, and it will be true over and over again without, like, endless, okay? It will just run it over and over again. So I always want to add to n plus 1. And now when I will run it, I will see 100 times in the command window that it wrote, I won't use Excel for graphs anymore. Okay, you can see it here. Now, why it works like that, let's see. The first step is clear all. I cleared everything, closed everything, and clear the command window. Now, n equals 0. We can see it here in the workspace. Now, the while loop asks whether n is less than 100. And it's true, n is less than 100. So I go into the while loop. Now it displays. I won't use Excel for graphs anymore. And then I will add 1 to n. I press on another step. It goes to end, and now it jumps back to while. Because while was true, and is still less than 100, it displays it again and add another one to n, and so on, like 100 times. Okay, if I'll do it like, let's say 5 now, you can see that, just a second, here. Now n equals 5. Now we go to the while and ask whether n is less than 5. It's not true, so it goes out. Okay, you see the error here. Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay. Makes sense, right? It's not very complicated. Okay. Now, the last loop that I want to show you is for. Now, the for loops are not related to Boolean variables. It is a loop, it's very useful, but it's not related to Boolean loops. What we do here, I write for, and then a variable, for example, I, equals 1 to 10. And then I need to write n at the end. Now, you can see that everything inside will be dependent on I. Okay? This loop will run out 10 times, and every time we'll change the number for I, okay, with each loop. For example, I can write this I. Now I'm going to run it, and you see what it does. For 1, for example, I want to display what I equals to. So now it's 1. And again, now I equals 2, and it will display I equals 2. And so on until we get to 10. When we get to 10, that's the end of the array of 1 to 10. And it will exit. Okay? Now I want you to do something nice. Take this, I send you here in the chat, a file. Okay, and I want you to import it into Matlab. Here, this shape. Okay? You can import it in 2 ways. You either use the import command, as we learned, or you just open it. Okay, it doesn't really matter. You can go to open, press here, and then go to the Matlab file and import it. Okay, or you can use the load command. Load shape.mat. Okay, it's the same. Did you do it? Do you have it on your computer? You have inside 2 variables, x and y. Okay, now you can plot it and see what you have inside. Okay, you have a heart shape. Now, let's say that I want to use now a loop, a for loop, to create lots of hearts, one inside the another. Okay? So let's see how we do it. I take a for loop and I say for I equals 1 to 10. Okay? Now, what I want to do inside, I want to plot it. I times x, comma, I times y. Now, why do I write here I times x and I times y? Can someone tell me? If I want to create the hearts inside one another, and I want to create lots of hearts in a heart that's going bigger and bigger, I want to scale it. I want to multiply the x array, and I want to multiply the y array every time in 1, and then in 2, and then in 3, and so on. I want to scale it up. So in each loop, I'm going to plot it again. When I scale it in factor of 2, and then in factor of 3, and then in factor of 4, okay? I scale it up with every loop. Now, before, it's very important to write hold on, right? Because I want to plot all the graphs inside the same figure, one above the other, okay? And then I write, and that's all I need. And when I run it now, I get lots of hearts inside one another. Okay? That's what we use for loops many times. Every time we have something that we want to scale up and we want to put it inside each other, we use for loops. Every time that I have, for example, a function with two variables, one is x and one is t, every time I want to show what happens in different time, so I use a for loop, okay? Every time for a different, like every loop for a different time, okay? Is it clear why this is what we got from the for loop?
Could you please repeat what's the hold on doing?
Yeah, look what's gonna be the difference. If I won't run it, if I won't write it, and I will run, every time the new plot will delete the previous one, okay? So here it is. No, sorry, not that. Every time I press on step, you see it deletes the previous one. It doesn't stack them one above the other. You see?
Ah, okay.
Every time it deletes the previous one. If I write hold on and I start to plot it, I get it one above the other. See? Or
Yeah,
I write hold on. Sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See? Okay. Now that's why we use for loops many times. That's what I use it for. Okay. And now to the last thing that I wanted to show you, which is the Monty Hall game. Now it's a really great game. I like it a lot. And we're gonna learn how to use it with the loops and the if statements. And I hope it will be clear. Okay, I'm gonna go through it very slowly, so it will take some time. But the game is great. I did it once when I started to use Matlab, just for fun, and I will tell you why. So if you don't know what is the Monty Hall game, I wrote it here for you, okay? Now, the Monty Hall game is a TV show that was, I don't know, some years ago, I think in the United States or in England, and it goes like that. You have 3 doors. Behind one of the doors, you have a really cool car, and behind the 2 other doors, you have goats. Now, you, of course, the player, you don't know which door, behind which door you have the car and behind which door you have the goat. All the doors are closed and you have to choose one door. So let's say I chose door number 1. Now, what Monty Hall does, he opens one of the door. I chose one, so he opens, let's say, the third door, okay? And he shows you that behind the third door is a goat. You always open a door where you have a goat, okay? And after you open the door, he asks you whether you want to change the door you chose. I chose 1, for example, so he asked me whether I want to change it to door number 2. If I say yes, I change it to door number 2, and if I don't want, I can keep the first door that I chose. Now he opens all the doors, okay? If I change it, for example, to door number 2, I would get a car. But because I didn't want to change it, and I stayed with door number 1, I get a goat. Is the game clear? It's a pretty simple game, right? There are 3 doors. The player chooses 1 door, okay? Then Monty asks whether, then Monty opens one of the doors which has goat, and it's not what he chose. So let's say the third one. There's a goat inside, and then he asks you whether you want to change what you chose. If you say yes, you can change. If not, you can keep the door you had before. And then he opens all the doors. If the door that you chose has the car, you want it. And if not, you want a goat. Okay? And that's what we want now to simulate in Matlab. Okay? We want Matlab to choose randomly a door, which will contain the car. And then we're gonna use the if and the while statement to play this little game. Okay? So let's go through it. Okay. Okay. Just a second. Yes. Okay. So the first thing we have every time is clear all, right? And close all and CLC, that's normal. Okay. Now we want to choose the door which will contain the car. So you're gonna write car equals rand I 3. Now you don't know this command, but it's pretty easy one. It randoms an integer. It chooses a random integer from 1 to what I have here inside. That's my I max, okay? So the highest integer you can choose from is 3, okay? I write, for example, in the command window, I get car equals 1, okay? Just a random integer. Now, we want a guess from the player. So you write first guess equals input. Please choose a door from 1 to 3. Okay? Now the player chooses a door from 1 to 3. Now we want to choose which door to open, right? Let's say the car is in door number 2. And maybe I'll write it down for you. It will be easier to remember. Let's say the door, we have the 3 doors. The car is here. And the player chose door number 1. So we want the computer to choose this door, right? We want to random a number from 1 to 3, which is not a car and not the first guess, right? So let's do it. Now, how are we gonna do it? We're gonna use a while command, a while loop. And it looks like that. The first open will be the first door that we open, that Monty opens, will be random a random number from 1 to 3. Now, while the first open equals car, right? Because we don't want a car. We want to random a new integer from 1 to 3, okay? Now look what we have here. Let's say the car is in, let's say, the first door. So car equals 1. Then the first open, if it's 1, for example, it will get into here, into the while loop, and it random a number again, okay? If it will be equal 1, we want to random again number. We don't want to get to a situation where the first open will be equal a car, right? But it's not the only condition we want to have. We want to have two conditions: whether the first open equals a car, and whether the first open equals the first guess, okay? So for that, we use the OR function. It means either this one is true, run the loop, either the first condition is true, or the second condition is true, where first open equals to first guess, okay? If one of the commands is true, it will random a number again. Let's see what we got so far. So I choose a door, let's say. Please choose a door from 1 to 3. I choose 2. And then Monty Hall tells me, in 3D is a goat, okay? And that's what we want to display now. Is it clear so far, or is it too complicated?
Can't you write something that doesn't force the program to open a number randomly when it knows what the car and what the first open is?
Again, sorry?
Could you write it in another way where you don't have to choose a number randomly, because you already know where the car is and what is the first door?
No, when you have the, when you, let's say the player doesn't know where the car is. The player sees just the command window, okay? It sees just this part. If I, for example, close this one, okay? Now you don't know where the car is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And just, the software knows it's true, but the player doesn't know. Now I ask him to choose a door from 1 to 3. And let's say it tells me I want to choose door number 2. That's it, okay? Now, after I chose the number that I wanted to open, which is not a car and not the first guess, I want to display it. So display. I want to say, for example, the car is, door number. Now I'll show you what I do, okay. Contains a goat. Now, here in the middle, I need to write the first open, okay? That's a door that I open first. But you cannot display just like that words, which is called strings in Matlab, next to numbers. So we have to use the command num2string. That's what we use all the time when we want to display numbers, okay? This command. We have to use it to display numbers. I want to choose door number 2. And then Monty Hall tells me door number 3 contains a goat. I don't know why it's like, why it writes it like that. Okay, I'll check the syntax for it later. I don't know why it writes it like that with the quotation marks. Okay, maybe because I wrote it too. I'll check it later and I'll tell you. So but now Monty tells me door number 1 contains a goat. Okay, I chose door number 2. Now what is the next step? The next step, I want to import a question. I want to get an input and answer whether the player wants to change the door. Okay, if he chose 2 and door 1 now is open and you want to change it, then it will choose automatically door number 3. Okay, so as an input, I can ask, for example, I'll put in a variable which is called change. Do you want to change the door you chose? Okay, 1 equals yes, and 0 equals no. Okay, so let's see what we get so far. So far, it goes like that. The Matlab chooses randomly a door where the car is. Now we want to ask the player to choose for a door. So it chooses door number 2. The car now, you can see it here in the workspace, is in door number 3. Now, we want to open a door, right? Which is not where the car is, not number 3. And it's not what the guest chose. Now we can see that the first open is door number 3, okay? We want to change it. So it gets into this while loop. Now it asks whether the first open equals where the car is, or whether the first open equals where the first guest is. If it's true, and we know that this one is true, right? We want to change it. So I random a number again. Now, the first open is again 3. So it goes up again, and it randoms it over and over again until we'll get something which is not a car and not the first open and not the first guess. So it goes over and over again until it stops. And then it tells me door number 1 contains a goat. Perfect. Now I ask the player whether he wants to change it. So I get as an input, do you want to change the door you chose? Yes for 1 and 0 for no. Let's say I press 1. Now what do I need to do? Now what I need to do, if it chose yes, I need to change from what it chose. If not, I keep it the same. So I write an if statement. If change equals 1. Okay? Now what do I need to ask? What do I need to do here? I know that I cannot open door number 1 because it's already open. So now when I want to, when it chose, for example, 1, that you want to change it, I need to take what it chose, okay, which is door number 2, and I need to change it to door number 3. Why? Because door number 1 is already opened. So I have something in my hand, and I want you to see it for a second. I don't have any degrees of freedom for my choosing. I don't need to random any number anymore. because everything is clear. One door is open all the time. One door it chose. So I need to pick this one. Now, if this one is door number 1, this one is door number 2, and this one is door number 3, the sum of them is 6. Okay, this one is a bit tricky. The sum of them is 6. So the door that I need to choose the door that I have to choose is 6 minus what is chosen plus open. Okay, it will always be like that. Okay, because if this one is 3, if this one is 2, and this one is 3, I get door number 1. Okay, this one is a bit tricky. You can go through it with all the if statement and say, if door number 2 is open, then choose door number 1 and so on. But this one calculates it in a very easy way because we don't have any degrees of freedom and everything we chose has to be equal 6. So if you didn't get it, it's not very important, okay? It's not the purpose of this exercise. So I can write now that the second guess equals 6 minus first guess plus what is open, first open. Okay? And that's it. If you want to change it, I need to guess again the other door. If not, it stays closed. And that's all the game. Now we just want to tell him whether he got the car or he got the goat. So the last if statement we're gonna have is if the second guess equals car, then I want to display congratulations, you got the car. And if not, I want to tell him, congratulations, you got a goat. Okay? And that's all the game.
Don't you need the double equal sign?
Double
equals
yeah. Yes, I need here the double. And here I did a small mistake.
You need else.
Yes, I need to change, I need to say, if you want to change, it has to be, if change equals 1, I need to change the door that he chose. But if not,
you can just use the same variable.
I just use the same variable, exactly. So second guess equals first guess. That's it. Now let's play. I press on run. Okay, I have a problem. Let's see. At least one end is missing. So let's see where we miss an end. Here. Okay, the syntax is very important here. Okay. So let's go through the code again. There is a random door which contains the car. Then there is the first guess. Then I choose this part is to choose which door to open, which contains a door, a goat. Okay, that's this part. Afterwards, we want to ask him whether to change. And then we want the last one, the last part, is to tell him whether he won. So let's play it. So please choose a door from 1 to 3. I choose door number 2. Now Monty tells me, door number 1 contains a goat. Do you want to change the door you chose? Let's say I want to change it. Okay, now you can see the car is at door number 3, so I want the car. Okay, was it clear, this little game?
Yeah, it's nice.
Okay, now, Oriane, what did you say? I didn't hear, sorry.
I just say it's nice.
The what? Sorry?
I just said that this is nice.
Okay, now I'll tell you why I wanted to play this game and why it's important. Because if you learned any probability, you know that it will be always smart to change what you chose, okay? You think that after Monty tells you, after you open one of the doors, you have 50% chance to win the goat and 50% chance to win the car. But it's not true. And if you learn probability, you should get intuition why it's not true. Okay, I can also send you a video that explains it very nicely. It's really cool. Now, when I heard it for the first time, I was in my first semester, I learned Matlab. I didn't learn probability, I didn't know it. So I wrote a code, not like that everything is random. The computer chooses the car, it doesn't know, it chooses the first door, then it chooses randomly whether to change it or not, and I let it play 10,000 times. It took like, I don't know, maybe a minute or two for the computer to play it with itself for 10,000 times and then like 100,000 times. And I want to see the statistic. I wanted to see whether it is actually true that it's better to change it. And it's true. I got it 66% of the time. When I changed what I chose, I got a car. So, yes. So I can send you the video, you can see it. It's really cool. They explain it in a very nice way. And you see that also, I mean, it looks complicated, right? It's not the easiest thing in the world. And if someone wants to stay at the end, I can explain it again, okay? And it took 31 lines, which is pretty long. But if you go through it, it's not very complicated. You can understand each step separately, and it's not more than using if statement and while statements. So you can do many things in Matlab, and I hope that this course showed you that Matlab is not as bad as you thought, and it's not as hard as you thought. And if you have any questions, you can send me emails or you can send me a WhatsApp, or I don't know in which way you want. I study physics and materials engineering, so you can come there, I'll be there. Not now during Corona times, but if you need anything, just let me know, okay? If you need any help. And that's all, and thank you very much. And I'll stay here now for questions if you have. So thank you
very much.
Bye-bye.